We just have to be patient. Just because we don't understand it doesn't mean they don't come together. So the other important thing is that we do not believe in a poofy God. God did not say poof, let there be light. That he actually worked with the elements, and that he worked within the laws of science that he follows. So anyway, so is my 5 minutes up? Was that ding I heard?
You're actually
Uh-oh.
two, but
all right, so let's go ahead and go to the next video, if possible. I was hoping to hypnotize you with this one here. This is one of my favorite videos. It is a NASA video of precipitation across the world. And is it going to load? I would encourage you to go to NASA and watch these videos that they have and just stare at them like a campfire for a while and let your mind wander on what you see happening. And there's some other videos that we'll see if I uploaded them properly that include the dust from the Sahara later on. And it will talk about different condensation nuclei. What I'm here to talk to you about is eco-agriculture and how all the great things that are happening in the field of agriculture by people who are ecologically minded. Back to the religious thing, sorry. Oops, this is important. In LDS scripture, there's a prophet by the name of Enoch, and his people live righteously, so righteously that the land and the earth itself protect them from their enemies and destroy their enemies, and the earth itself protects them. And as I'm learning about these different practices of agriculture, like no-till and holistic, all these great things that are going on, I hear these wonderful stories about how the land protects them from the elements that comes by. Mark Shepard, who wrote Restoration Agriculture, in the preface of his book, Restoration Agriculture, the person who came to visit his farm before writing the preface, as they approached, there were floods and there were terrible conditions throughout the valley as they drove up to Mark's farm. And as they came onto Mark's farm, he thought this will probably be a terrible time to come visit. But as they came on, they saw that Mark and his laborers were laughing, and they were having a great time, and their farm was completely protected against the negative consequences of the weather system that came through. So healthy agriculture systems that respect the environment takes care of you. It's got your back. So one of the things that I noticed when I watched this particular video is you will see in the western United States, there's really not a lot of precipitation. And then as it comes towards the forest, the rain forms. You see clouds form and it starts to rain. And that's going to be kind of key later. All right, what's next? Okay, Smallville, we don't have to push play. I feel like as far as the environment goes and as far as global warming, man-made climate change goes, we are in the Smallville episode. Now in the series Smallville, this is young Superman, and he keeps discovering a new superpower. And each time he has this new power, he burns down a building with his laser vision, and something horrible happens. And his dad comes to him and says, his dad said, it's okay, we got this. We need to learn how to use this power wisely. And that's how I feel like we are as far as man-made climate change goes, is kind of the horror of denial or acceptance, and what do we do? I feel like we need to stop and assess what we know, and this is a great superpower. This is good news. Not that we have been using it unwisely, but now that we're beginning to understand how it works, this is great. This means that on a microclimate level and sometimes on some ways a global level, we can make effective change. This is good news. I'm not afraid of climate change. And I think that is one of the problems in the message to the conservatives. The conservatives like to know how they can take charge and how they can do something. And saying that man is evil, everything is evil, you shouldn't exist. That's the message that conservatives hear. And I think with the message we need to give to conservatives is, look what we can do. We can do an amazing thing. So, yeah. Next one, sorry, Joseph. All right, so let's talk about climate change denial. Here we have corporations in Idaho Power. They've already accepted that we can affect the climate. And Idaho Power is a part of an organization called the Association of, I don't know, I didn't bring it in with me, but an association where they seed rain, and Idaho Power wants to make sure that we have enough snowfall in the mountains, and so they have the airplanes that lift up and they release a specific chemical that stimulates snowfall. And so basically we already know what's happening, and as far as corporations go, it is happening, and they're trying to affect change by making sure we have enough snowfall in the winter. Okay, next. Sorry to be so bossy. What?
When do we get to ask you a question?
I don't know. I have like 80 hours of material I'm cramming in 45 minutes.
Are you for or against that?
I need to understand it more. I need to understand it more, and there's a lot to understand in that. Okay. So the pictures are really to rein me in. They're not just for you, but to rein me in. And okay, I like this one. Okay, can you push play at the other play on that?
That's what I'm waiting for.
Oh,
For it to
sorry.
load.
Okay, sorry. So this next video is one of my favorites. It shows the dust coming off of the Sahara Desert. And it has 3 different colors in it. The blue is for the sea salt, the brown is for the dust, and then the white is actually the forest fires in the Northwest and different parts of the world. And the Sahara dust...
How can you see the atmosphere?
Sorry. So what's actually amazing to me is I'm kind of obsessed with the whole hurricane thing. And the hurricanes come off of the Sahara in the Sahel in Ethiopia and Sudan. And they kind of come through here, and you see they swirly. They do the swirly. They're quite pretty from afar, aren't they? So, out of curiosity, I went and I looked up. Remember, is it "We Are the World"? Remember the songs that we did in the '80s for the people? And I looked up the hurricane seasons for those years. And the same years that we were singing for the people dying from famine were the same years that we have massive hurricanes, but they were exceptional hurricane years. So one of the great causes of the hurricanes is the contrast between the Sahel in North Africa and the Sahara and Southern Africa. Where those two meet, weather patterns meet, is coming off of West Africa, where they sent off the slaves, that same spot there. Enslaved, thank you. Sorry, the enslaved. That's where the hurricanes, many of the hurricanes come off of. And then of course they come across the warmer Atlantic Ocean and in the Gulf of Mexico. Now this season has been quite interesting. They've been doing a lot of work in the Sahel on the Great Green Wall. And does everybody here know about the Great Green Wall? They're trying to make a wall of trees, trying to stop the Sahara Desert from moving south. And so the people it used to be 11, I think they're up to 22 African countries are working to plant a wall of trees to try to prevent that from coming across. But this season, there have been hurricanes or great storms that have formed right in the Gulf of Mexico without having to come from Africa. So we have these 2 different places that storms come from. The storms that came out of the Gulf of Mexico came out of the dead zones in the Gulf. All right, I am obsessed with the dust. Okay, I want to talk about 3 different kinds of condensation nuclei, and I don't want to talk about desert dust because these affect our farmers. First of all, desert dust is just mineral, okay? And it tends to go in the upper atmosphere. But desert dust alone does not provide good condensation nuclei. It provides nuclei for a haze. Because, anyway, it provides a haze, and haze is a warming type of cloud. It actually warms the earth. And then the only way for it to form water droplets large enough for rain are 2 ways. One is if it passes through a city that has pollution, and that pollution coats it with a sulfuric compound, then it can form a raindrop. And then it can come down and rain. The other way it can come down as precipitation is if it goes into the higher altitudes through glaciation. Okay, is that the right word? Did I use the right word? Yeah, glaciation. So when it gets to the higher altitude, which it will either form snow or hail. So dust as a condensation nuclei is very undesirable because it is a cause of hailstorms and extreme weather. It also pulls the moisture. It makes the air more arid and makes it less likely to rain. Okay. Oh, I love it. We'll go back. I like that picture. Okay, this is one of my favorite pictures. This is an artist on Etsy. They have colored in all the different water basins. So we're going to make a big jump here and talk about the water in the United States. I believe in, right now we have a centralized water system where the soil's been hardened and everything runs off into the rivers and it's taken down to a dam, and then the government decides who gets that water. And before European powers came here, the Beavers had a distributed water system where there were multiple dams in just a 100 foot, I don't know the distance between the dams, but they were quite frequent. And if a beaver saw a tree over there, they'd dig themselves a little trench over to the tree, cut the tree down and bring it in. So they did a lot of work to spread and distribute the water effectively and created good ecosystems for the fish and the trout and the salmon for spawning. So what the farmers want to do, what a lot of ranchers want to do, is illegal. Zach Weiss is wonderful. He does a lot of work on water retention landscapes, and this is great for farmers and ranchers where they terrace the land and do some beaver work. He's a human beaver, and they reform the land so that the water stays on the land and doesn't run off into the rivers and streams so quickly. They want to slow down the water. We talk about the sea levels rising, and everybody talks about the North Pole, the South Pole, and the glaciers. But what about our aquifers and the water that used to be retained in the soil that is now lost? So there are those that believe that the aquifers are a source of the oceans rising. So Zach Weiss's work is pretty much illegal in the United States because of WOTUS laws, Waters of the United States. So the WOTUS laws are meant to protect us and to protect the earth. Obviously, putting in toxic chemicals into our waters is undesirable, but allowing people to build dams, and this awesome little beaver dam. This is a man-made beaver dam. They're called an analog, I guess, where the humans mimic the beavers and put this simple little structure in. It takes a day to get this in there. And it slows down the river and actually attracts real beaver to that area. So the dams, the beavers open the tree canopies, which allows more light in. They promote biodiversity. Were you raising your hand over there? Or were you just scratching in your head there? Okay, sorry. Sorry. Okay, so one of the barriers that we have in the government is the environmental laws are from way back when, and whatever law we pass to regulate the environment is set in stone. And then a few 10 years, 20 years down the road, when we have greater understanding, it is so hard to affect change in our communities to implement the new system. So when we think about what changes do we need to make to environmental law to do good and allow people to do the good things they want to do on their farms and their ranches, how do we do that, and yet how do we protect the environment, yet at the same time allow for new knowledge to come in because of the bureaucracy involved? So if Zach Weiss were to do some work on your ranch or your farm, the farm's going to be charged, I've seen upwards of $75,000 a day in fines. After getting state approval, they find out the feds didn't like it, and they get fined at outrageous sums. All right, okay. All right, this is one of my favorite pictures, and I can't put it on my campaign website because they won't let us do political stuff, but this is an Eco Summit. So this is Mr. Glover, and he has two forms of wheat. And here, the left is perennial wheat, and the right is annual wheat. And most of the crops, even vegan crops, are done in an annual till system, which you will see on the right. And I don't know how well you can see from over there, but the soil is dead. There's no root structure, there's no biology in the soil is dead. The soil on your left can absorb, there'll be an infographic later, but we'll stay here, I love this picture. The soil on the left is what the soil used to look like before we got here. When Lewis and Clark explored the West, this is what he had. And when it rains, if a flood comes in, if there's too much rain, if there's 13 inches of rain, if there's 30 inches of rain, which side is going to survive? If there's a fire, which side is going to survive? Now the system on the left can be done through holistic land management, holistic grazing, where you have the animals rotated around on the ground, where you rotate the animals and manage them wisely. The system on the right is many, many forms of even vegan agriculture. So everything we do, we need to build the soil, the life in the soil, and get the roots down in there. And right now, the federal government subsidizes everything on the right. The federal government subsidizes the chemicals that kill everything. In the soil, there are thousands of different microorganisms that break down. I think Elaine Ingham says 43 different minerals that are provided. She is a soil biologist, and she declares that it doesn't matter what the alkalinity of your soil is or where you are on the earth, that if you have that proper biology in the soil, it can break down the mineral and exudates. I guess that's a word that's new to me in the last couple of years. The animals will either die or poop or eat each other, and that releases the minerals and makes them bioavailable for the plants. Right now, our current system subsidizes killing everything in the soil and then spraying on chemicals. Just like you may have seen the video where they've got the cereal going on the conveyor belt and they just spray the vitamins and mineral powder on it. That's how they have the nutritional value. Well, that's what we're doing out in the soil. And I think that's why I and everybody else has weight problems out there, is the food we get from the store doesn't have the nutritional value. And we're always hungry. We are always hungry because the food, even in the produce department, has less vitamins and minerals. The nutrient density is depleted so much. I know that they've done studies in San Francisco where they found the weeds in the cement had a higher nutritional value than the produce in the market. So that's where we're at. So we need to grow plants in sponge-worthy soil. Walter, I don't know how to say his last name, Gente, Walter. Sorry if you need this link. He is a hydrologist. He is able to demonstrate how 95% of our Earth's weather is regulated by the water system itself, outside of carbon, outside of methane. It is the water cycle, and he talks about how do we get the water cycle working properly. All right, we can leave my favorite picture if we want to, if we're bored. Oh, how sad. I am so sorry. Okay, this is like my favorite picture too. So I want you to imagine, this is the Dust Bowl, and this is the guy, see where your guy's hand is at. That's where the top of the soil is. Where he's standing on the other guy's sitting on a clump of grass. And I'm so sad. Okay, so this is the Dust Bowl after we came and we plowed the ground, and the Native Americans, the first Americans here, said, what are you plowing the ground for? Why are you stabbing Mother Earth? And of course, after they brought in the plow, you can drive down to the countryside here. I do this every year, drive across the countryside, and you see the plow, you see the tractors going in the fall and in the spring, and they're driving over and over and over again, and the dust is just blowing all the soil away. Isn't that just wonderful? All right, sorry. Oh, what's that? All right, 1% of organic matter in the soil can hold 27,000 gallons per acre of water. So when you have that biology in the soil, when you have the root system in the soil, then you hold the water. And what is just amazing to me is like Mark Shepard, I told you about his farm, he wrote Restoration Agriculture. He doesn't experience drought like other people do. Other farms are experiencing drought and they're fine. All right. Okay, do you want to push play on this? We're going to see this is going to be a decent resolution. All right, this is the importance of biology. And this is at every level of our ecosystem, from the oceans to the land to the ranches. Is it going to show? Okay, on the right, somewhere, on the right you're going to see a bunch of bugs crawling around. And they're going to eat and destroy and poop, and eat and destroy and poop. And on the left, there's no animal life. And on the right, you can see that it decomposes properly, but on the left, it just sits there and rots. And if the resolution was, you would see that the mold forming. It just molds on the left. And at every level of the ecosystem, we need animals. We need actual livestock on the land, managed wisely, not feedlots. But you can see the importance, every part of our ecosystem in the oceans. In the oceans, what would take the place of that is, of course, the phytoplankton and the krill breaking down. And they feed off of whale poop. I love whale poop. Okay. Whales and cattle, livestock, and herds of wild animals, they are they cycle nutrients throughout the entire system. An animal will come down to the valley and then they'll eat and they'll go up to the top of the hill and they'll poop and they'll cycle the nutrients through. Oh, the soil food web. Elaine Ehan, she's awesome. These are just all the different little creatures and what their responsibilities are in the ecosystem. I gotta move along, sorry. I could spend the days on each one. And there's each one broken down with the benefits in their system. All right, so now our current plan is to kill everything in the ecosystem and then plant what we want. And we're putting chemicals on the seeds and then putting the seeds and planting the seeds, sowing the seeds. And then the birds in their migration, we've all read this news in the last week, they've discovered as birds are migrating and they stop on the field, the migration is synced at the same time as the planting. And the birds will eat those seeds that have insecticides on them. And it may knock down the bird for about 9 hours before it can fly again, but that's still too much time. So even the seeds the birds are eating, so at every level of our ecosystem, we're just killing everything. We need to stop subsidizing that. Oh, that's a video. All right, forest resolution. Okay, the other one, go back and hold it there, even though it's not that great here. Okay. Let me see if I can remember this video properly. Okay, this is the biotic pump. Trees, forests, they pump the water from the ocean into the center of the continent. The forests are the biotic pump bringing the moisture in. They cool the earth. They do several things. They cool the earth, and through transevaporation, they release moisture back up into the air. And on their leaves and on their branches, they release chemicals that provide marvelous condensation nuclei for cloud condensation and rain formation. Oh, it's playing. Cool. Okay. And not only that, they provide a fungal environment for mushrooms. Now, the spores of mushrooms are delightful condensation nuclei for rain droplets. So they cool the earth. So what happens is you come in from the ocean, and it cools it down, and it rains in that forest because of the cooling and the condensation. And then the tree brings it right back up again and cycles the water on. And the rain may stay in the same spot for a while and keep cycling through up to 7 times before it moves on deeper in. So forests, properly managed. One of the problems we have, one of the biggest problems we have, is everybody's getting on this forest bandwagon. We've got China planting trees, all these people planting trees, and they're not taking the time to find out if those trees are appropriate for that ecosystem, and they're not making a balance of trees. So when we go in and plant trees, we need not just trees and shrubs, but we're building an ecosystem. We can't just go in and plant a bunch of poplars and say this is great. You've seen the poplars as you drive down the big mini forest of poplars. Go ahead and go to the next one. Thank you. Oh, one of my favorite pictures too. So this is in Europe, and this is a form of agroforestry called alley cropping. And they have appropriate trees that produce crops themselves, so you can have a walnut, and then they space the trees far enough apart to where you can have another crop underneath. And one of the great things about properly spaced trees, which I love savannas, who was driving me through the savannah last week, was that you? Yeah. All right, savannas are great. In the heat of the day, another wonderful picture, okay. In the heat of the day, photosynthesis shuts down. The stomatas and the leaves will close up and it gets too hot. And the wonderful thing about dappled sunlight is that it cools the plants enough that they continue photosynthesis, and you will have larger fruit and you will have larger wheat if it mellows it out. Okay? And so animals grazed in a holistic system that includes trees, the right amount of trees, the savanna style, where you get probably about 30% canopy cover is ideal. 30% canopy cover is ideal not only for the plants but for the livestock also. I mean, if you're out going for a walk in the park, do you prefer the deep forest? Do you prefer the no shade, or do you prefer the dappled? We get a little bit of sunlight here. So the animals actually will graze longer. All right, Alan Savory, who here knows who he is? Please, some of you know who Alan Savory is. He is wonderful. He is, I don't know where he's going when he meets God. Because when his youth, he promoted he believed that elephants were destroying the ecosystem and desertifying the land. So he participated in persuading the government to kill, what was it, 40 or 50,000 elephants? Sentient beings? Yeah, not cool. And then the land continued to desertify. And he realized he'd made a mistake, and he made some observations later. And he is the pioneer, the spokesman, I guess, in promoting what they call holistic land management. And with holistic land management, they study the soil, they study the plants and the animals, and they move the animals appropriately according to what the land needs. They do not keep animals in feedlots for long periods of time. So when a hooved animal goes out on the land in a tight herd, as though the wolves were surrounded them with predators, like we had, I believe, 60 million bison back in the dawn, back before the Europeans decided to wipe them out. Yeah, it was such a good time. We had plenty of bison. And as far as gas goes, we all know if we eat the wrong foods, we're going to have gas, right? Bad methane. So they would stay together in very tight herds. And as that herd came through, they would stomp, they would poop, they would pee, and they would move on. And they wouldn't come back to that area until that area had recovered. And that is key to, it turns out that going through the digestive system of an animal is key to a lot of seeds and plant life. That being eaten is a part of the life cycle of plants. So you can, some seeds do not germinate unless they've either gone through a fire or a digestive tract of a living animal. Okay? So, sorry. So Mark Shepard, he was doing a webinar, and he's got the New Forest Farm, and he's always out planting trees, and so every morning, he says, probably not every morning, probably now and then, he will literally eat a tree seed, a locust tree seed, like a pill, and then he'll be out doing his business. And he'll plant a tree later in the day. Gotta love Mark, sorry, TMI. No, but it works. It's kind of a joke, but it's actually quite serious. Sorry, Joseph, there. All right. Oh, I don't even know what I'm looking at. Oh, okay. So we have some wonderful people here in our valley. Brad McIntyre Farms down in Marsing. He is following the wisdom of Mark Shepard, Joel Salatin, and Alan Savory. He has an operation where he has chickens, and he has pigs, and he has cows, livestock, and he moves them all rotationally. So every day he moves his cows, and he keeps them in a very tight herd like the bison. And the chickens follow right afterwards. And his animals do not need the immunizations. They do not need to be dewormed because they're not in their poo. One of the reasons we have so many chemicals needed in our livestock is in the confinement feeding. They are living in their poo. As much as we love poo, that's just not, that's not how it should be done. So in the background, there's some pretty cows, and then here's some turkeys. He actually has wonderful turkeys for sale in the fall, and he moves these animals, and he's built these big chicken coops that are mobile, and his children go out every day and release the chickens, and they're after the cows, and they go through the poop, and they break it up, and they eat all the parasites and the flies. And then, of course, he brings the pigs in also, and he has turkeys also. So if you want guilt-free, these animals have a great life and one bad day. And about the one bad day, I want to take a moment to talk about government regulations that make that bad day a little bit worse. There are very strict regulations called abattoir on butchers. And if you have a mobile butcher come into your farm and work, which is better for the animal because they don't have to be hauled off in a trailer. If you have them come into your operation and to where you live to have them do it there and then throw it in your freezer, there are very strict government guidelines on how you can sell that to individuals. So I'm not sure how Brad does his system, how he does the abattoir, but there's very few butcher shops that are legal in the United States for the farmer to actually sell direct to the customers immediately afterwards. And that has to do with corporate greed. and power and control. So if we were able to change those laws so that mobile abattoirs could come in and process the animals on the farm, that is great for animal welfare, that they can have a great life and one bad moment. They taste better when they're not stressful. And they could, but the point is the animals on these farms are fulfilling the full measure of their creation in this, if I prefer they live a good life. They're having an enjoyable life. They have a good life. And anyway, I encourage you to go visit Brad McIntyre Family Farms. They have a great operation. They do deliver several places in the valley if you want less guilt in your meat. But, sorry. Oh, this is wonderful. Okay. This applies to the lawns. Okay. What is the #1 crop in the United States of America?
Bluegrass.
That's number 2. You said it.
Crabgrass.
Grass. Grass. Lawns. We just pick it right. The #1 crop in America is we have more acreage in the American lawn than any other crop in America. So, yeah, that's not very useful. This shows when you're learning holistic land management and how to manage your animals, it's very important to recognize how long to leave the animal in its area. So with that percentage, with 90% of the plant removed, 100% of the roots stop growing for 17 days. So if you're having horses or cows in the same spot in the pasture, you're just going to eat the pasture down. Then with 70%, 50% of the roots stop growing for 70 days. And then, so these ranchers and farmers are really taking the time to go out and study the grass and the root structure and see what's happening before they move the animals and have the animal impact on there. Okay, all right. Oh, I love this. Okay, so this is great. We talked about the rotational grazing in Africa. You can imagine trying to deal with lions and lions with your livestock. And they have a corral that is a mobile corral. They move it every 7 days. And during the day, they take the cattle and they move them out. And they protect them and they keep them in a tight herd. And at night, they put them in the corral. And every 7 days, they move the corral. And when they move that corral, the neighbors who were left behind love that because that is a perfect garden. So all the stomping and the pooping pee in that tight area improves that spot for the intensive gardening that the people want to do after they leave. And then the other areas are improved also. On the picture he showed earlier with the grass on the right and the dirt on the left, there were 4 times more livestock on the right, but they were properly managed. They were moved around and whatnot. All right, what's next? And you'll have to stop me on time because I can go on for days.
Okay. About 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Oh my gosh. Okay. This is what I was explaining earlier about the forests, how they bring in the rain, the biotic pump, and how the forests bring in the rain. So, yeah. All right, I have to mention, and I promised Seth I would, there's a group called Soil for Climate, and they promote the holistic land management systems in the grasses. And this is a great diagram. Every animal you introduce to an ecosystem brings in more animals. How you manage the land, what type of forestry you want to include on your land, impacts the animals you're going to have on the land. But what I wanted to say about Soil for Climate, Soil the #4 Climate, they're very proactive and involved in making government change to help promote ecosystems. But one thing I often see between the tree people and the Soil for Climate people is the conflict between trees and grass. There's a big push for planting trees, and Soil for Climate says, no, we need to do rotational grazing, the holistic, and bring the grass. The truth is we need both. We need the savannas. The savannas are in my mind, the savannas have been shown to restore aquifers. Thank you. All right, you can't see it very well, but this is the beetle damage. I do believe in managing the forests properly. I spent my early years in Bend, Oregon, in the forest there, and you drive down the road, and there's this forest as tall as anything. And we moved away for a year, and I came back to visit, and everything was orange and copper-colored, and the trees had all died. And I was about 13, I heard my dad complain in the car about darn environmentalists making it difficult to take care of the environment. I didn't know what he was talking about. So we need to actually maintain and take care of our forests properly. Clear cutting is not appropriate. Now, to China has gotten a lot of credit because they've planted a lot of forests in China. In the meantime, they took off to Africa, and they've been clear cutting Africa, which has done what, 2 hurricanes, or weather patterns. So this is the forest, the beetle damage. If you want to, I've got study after study in my bookmarks bar about how going in and cleaning up. Okay. So the right is managed, the left is not. On the left we have the USDA. Jim Priest out of Montana took this picture, and he managed the private land. And if you're Bambi and you want to raise your kids, where do you want to raise your kids? On the managed land on the right or the land on the left? If you're a bird and you want to have a nest, where do you want to spread your wings? Where do you feel safe? So a lot of environmental groups have provided huge barriers to actually going in. They'll file lawsuits to prevent us to go in to clean up and manage our forests. Now, yes, okay. Okay, this looks like a huge mushroom cloud. This is a forest fire in unmanaged land down in California, and it's like a big nuclear bomb going off. The temperature of a fire, you know, seeds need the digestive system of a mammal or a bird in order to germinate. Well, the fire can also cause these seeds to germinate also. However, if the fire burns too hot, everything is sterilized several feet down, including the microorganisms are killed deep into the earth, and so you see a desolation for years to come in that area. So fires can be used beneficially, but this is not a beneficial fire. And what drives me nuts is when I see, I know PG&E is in huge trouble in California because of the fires that they so-called, that they are blamed for, when in fact, well, that's an awful video, very depressing. People trying to escape a fire. They're blamed for the fire because they sparked it, but the fact is this poor land management created a tinderbox for fire. All right, this is some lovely topsoil that has no soil structure. Does everybody here know what no-till is? Do you guys know what no-till is?
Yes.
Do you know what it is? Okay. No-till system is a way of planting crops without actually tilling the ground, or minimal disturbance. And so they have a no-till seeder, and they'll plant one crop, and then a couple of weeks later they'll actually plant another crop so that they're staggered, and they'll harvest at different times with different equipment. But the idea is to manage the land in such a way that you're not destroying the soil biology and the soil structure. And so this is traditionally tilled land, and water runoff. Now the dead zone, I believe the dead zone is created from the farm runoff, and that I do believe the dead zone heats up. And all right, we're done.
Yeah, so I got one question. You know,
Yes.
this is an awesome presentation on some of this, but you keep going back to a recurring issue.
Which is,
The overregulation of the way we manage farm and rangeland.
yes, the overregulation and misregulation.
Yes.
So the answer to that is Gabe Brown, who lives in North Dakota. He runs a ranch there, and the land protects him. And I asked him and his friends, I said, what can the government do to help other people transition into this form of agriculture? What money can we give them? What bribes? What do we do? And they said, get out of the way. They said, we make a profit in the first year. When have you ever heard a farmer or rancher say they make a profit the first year? The profit and farming are completely, you know, those do not go hand in hand. And they were just a get out of the way. So the regulations, the flood and the crop insurance, the way it's managed, it's very difficult to do the no-till system with the crop insurance system. The crop subsidies that they have, I think 1/3 of our crops right now are corn, the other third is soy in the United States. Those are monoculture systems without the biodiversity that is necessary to promote healthy ecosystems. Anything raised in a monoculture, which is one crop only, is going to degrade the soil, because the only way to do monoculture is with chemicals, is to poison the land.
So one of the things you talk about is the difference between a local policy versus a national policy. Right now, the federal government emphasizes a lot of control over the way we handle rangeland and farmland, you know, as opposed to local management.
All right, so Stephen Rich, this might answer a little bit of that question. Stephen Rich is a friend of mine. He's a range manager. He's got 20,000, 30,000 acres. And the land, he has BLM land, which is government federal land, and he has private land. The private land has beautiful grasses growing between his sagebrush, but the BLM land is regulated how much animals he can have, and he can't bring enough in. And it's desolate between each sagebrush. There's bare dirt, well, the graphics on there, but there's bare dirt between the sagebrush instead of grass between the sagebrush. But see, that's somebody who's local, and they've got, where they have enough local control over the private land, but the federal land, they can't implement these systems. So government needs to get out of the way. I think somebody scolded me for saying that the other day. Lots of people. All right, do you have another question?
No, I
All
don't.
right. I could go on for a couple days, and
It's great. I enjoyed this.
I go on for days here. So yeah, tell me when to stop, and if you want to talk privately and let me go on for hours, we can do that. But I've had the opportunity to learn a lot of wonderful things about wonderful things happening in the world, and I'm actually very excited about what's happening in the world. We just need to open the door so those things can happen. Yes, my dear.
Well, there's two of us.
All right, we'll give you turns.
Go ahead first.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to give you another story from the presentation.
Ooh.
Down south where they have the prairie dogs,
Yeah.
the white man first showed up, he looked at all these prairie dogs and all the holes in them. And he
That's-
said, we got to kill all these prairie dogs.
Kill the irrigation system?
Native Americans in that area said, no, you can't kill them, the rain won't come.
Mhm.
Well, like people said, that's a stupid reason, that's just superstition. But they did come to an agreement. Part of it, they would leave the prairie dogs, part of it, they would kill them. Well, in the spring, when the rains came, the rains washed everything away and eroded it where all the prairie dogs had been killed.
Yeah.
But where the prairie dogs were, the water went into the holes and made
It was
into-
irrigation. Let's take out nature's irrigation system.
Very much
That's a good way to do it. Let's do it the hard way.
I want you to follow up if you can.
Okay.
Helping us phrase the connection to our values to other communities.
Okay. Well, that would be community specific, wouldn't it?
Okay, specifically farmers,
Okay, farmers.
specifically hunters.
You tell the farmer, I make a profit the first year.
It's 4 years.
You tell the farmer, I'm out of debt. And go ahead. And the ecology, the eco people don't come and raid your farm. No, we don't do that here. Sorry, I don't want to even go there. Okay, sir.
I do rotational grazing with my chicken.
Yes.
And the best thing about it is you always get volunteers. Volunteer plants, all tomato plants,
Mhm.
corn will come up where they.
The biodiversity increases.
Anything that you fed them, the chickens will pass through and put it into the ground. You don't mow that area for a good 2-3 months in the summer, you'll have tomatoes coming up.
Yeah. And so they've seen it where they have not seeded, where they bring in the livestock and they rotational graze and they keep them in tight mobs.
Yes.
They will see 20 different varieties of grasses and weed creature things come up in place. The biodiversity, it just explodes because all of that plant matter needed to pass through an animal first. So, okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you.